Hey y'all, it's Rick here with Uncommon Communion. And yes, I once again missed your 6 a.m. delivery of the podcast or the video, whichever way you look at that. I apologize. If this is a part of your day and that is a routine and you didn't get it today, I am sorry. I will say this though, as I mentioned, uh, throughout the week, this past week, I was leading trainings all week. And Friday, y'all, I just hit the wall. I just hit the wall. And when it came time to think about recording the podcast, I just did not have the gas in the tank, went to bed. And this morning, I would have recorded earlier, but Saturday mornings, a number of things happen each week. One is that I talk to my sponsee, one of my sponsees. He calls me at 8:15. Secondly, I go to a 9 o'clock 12-step meeting on Zoom. And once that ends up, I have some time on Saturdays. And here we are. So today I want to tell you actually a story that came out of that 12-step meeting. And also I would like to read to you the next Psalm, which is Psalm 31 plus 7 is 38. The 31 is January, of course. That's how I'm remembering what Psalm we are on. But before that, let's begin as we always begin by recognizing, realizing, affirming, and basing our life on, y'all, that we are always and everywhere in the holy presence of the more and each other. So I've shared here before that I am in a 12-step recovery group. I don't share specifically what it is because, again, I'm not to the point where I want to break my anonymity. Perhaps someday, I think when I go to write my memoirs, when I put that into print, I'm pretty sure I'm going to mention it there. Not 100% yet, but pretty sure. Nevertheless, I can share about a meeting I was in today without breaking this gentleman's anonymity. Not going to tell you his name. You don't know anything about him, but it is a really good story. And one I think that inspired me when I heard it. Here it is, y'all. So this gentleman is probably, I don't know, based on how he looked on his camera, probably, 30-ish, mid 30s, maybe late 30s, but, youngish. As you get older, more and more people are young-ish, right? So he's sharing, he's from the Dominican Republic. He said that he moved to New York and somebody in New York, a relative said, hey, you got music in you, in your genes. And he started kind of, playing around with music and eventually became some sort of a musician. And he said, 7 years ago, I think was what he said, 7 years ago, he was performing in a club and somebody asked him to, he was performing kind of on the scene and in a specific club, I guess in New York City, somebody said, hey, we got this young kid coming in from Puerto Rico. We need an opener. Why don't you come in and do that? So he came in and opened and performed. And he said when this young kid, it was like 800 people, he said, in the club, when this young kid took the stage, they had, the performer had an amazing cult following. Like people were following and people were, cheering and so on and so forth. Now, maybe in the story, when I said Puerto Rico, you picked up the connection where this is going. I did at that point. So when he got to the punchline, I already kind of knew what he was going to say. But y'all, that performer, that kid, that my fellow recovering addict shared about was Bad Bunny, right? And as you probably know, Bad Bunny is not just the winner of the album or the record of the year. I always forget the difference between those two, but is performing tomorrow on the biggest stage possible, which is the Super Bowl halftime show, and is controversial, right? I still chuckle when I remember a few months ago when they announced that Bad Bunny was performing, how all the MAGA right wingers with their white supremacy and their clutching their pearls, were, oh, we can't have, this is terrible. So they did schedule, you might have heard, a conflicting or a parallel competitive halftime show that is featuring the great, the legendary, never to be in the Hall of Fame because Guess what, y'all? This particular performer has a underage teen sex problem. Big surprise. Kid Rock. Yeah, it's Kid Rock. So, there's a big choice tomorrow. Bad Bunny, biggest artist in the world, representing just an amazing spirit and representing the United States. Because, y'all, Puerto Rico is a part of the United States. Not a full state yet, but it is U.S. You visit Puerto Rico, you don't need a passport if you're a U.S. citizen, of course. So I share this with you, this story, because the takeaway that the gentleman telling the story was this. He said, in those last 7 years that, since this young kid took the stage, he's been getting better and better and working harder and harder in his creative endeavor. And here he is at the top of the world, so to speak, right? Whereas my recovery friend said over those 7 years, he's been in his addiction getting worse and worse and worse, and he has nothing to show for it. So he used the H word that I think is so important, y'all, is humbled. He says this is humbling. And I think that's always something we need to be aware of is humility, right? If there's anything that Jesus the Christ tells us and shows us is this sense of humility, right? And it is all over the Psalms, right? Now, today's Psalm, the Psalm 38, it's a fairly short one. I'm going to read it to you in its whole. It's only 22 verses, so kind of in that middle range. But I think it's pretty interesting because some of the imagery here is really, really intense. And there's something different going on right up at the front. And I'm not going to point it out when I'm reading it, but I'll reflect on it at the end. That is a very different perspective on God or grandfather in this translation than we've seen before. So there's a similar theme. The psalmist is feeling afflicted and the enemies and I'm going to be faithful. You're going to hear all of that. But it starts out in a different place. So here we go. Grandfather, do not speak sharply to me when you are upset, or correct me when your anger burns. Your arrows have sunk deep into me, and your hand is heavy on me. Your fierce anger has made my body weak. My broken ways have made me sick deep inside my bones. Guilt floods over me like a raging river. My wrongdoings are like a great stone dragging me down in sorrow. My wounds smell like rotting meat, all because of my foolish and broken ways. I cannot stand up straight. All day long I lay on the ground groaning in sorrow. There is a fire inside of me, burning hot. My body aches and wastes away. I am worn out and broken. My troubled heart howls as I groan in pain and sorrow. O Maker of life, you know how much I long for your healing touch. All my painful sighs are not hidden from you. My heart beats like a broken drum. I grow weak. All my strength is fading, and the light in my eyes is growing dim. My sickness has made those close to me who love me stay far away. Even my relatives stand at a distance. All who seek to kill me are setting their traps. All who look to harm me threaten violence against me. All day long they scheme and plot like a trickster. Like someone who cannot hear, I close my ears. Like someone who cannot speak, I close my mouth. In this way, I do not listen to their threats and say nothing back to them. For you, my honored chief and creator, will answer their threats. I am looking to you for this, grandfather. For I know that if my foot slips, they would look down on me with scorn and disrespect. But I am about to fall to the ground under this heavy load of pain and sorrow that never leaves me. I will speak the truth about my guilt. I am troubled by my broken ways. My enemies grow strong and powerful. Many hate me for no good reason. They give back evil for good. They stand against me because I walk in beauty and harmony. Grandfather, do not give up on me. My Creator, do not stand far from me. Stay close by my side. Hurry. I need your help now, my honored chief, the one who sets me free and makes me whole. Yeah, there's a lot there, y'all. And I'm looking at coming up on my time limit here that I like to keep. A couple of things. So I hear in this as a person who is a recovering addict And again, I've shared with you, it is not a substance. That's not been my challenge, substances. I have felt those feelings, right? I grow weak. My strength is fading. I am burning inside of me. I've grown in sorrow. Not all of that literally necessarily, although certainly someone who is a substance, who struggles with substance use disorder, someone who is an addict, I think that's very accurate from what I see and what I hear. Withdrawal is, right? When you vow to kick the drug and you give it up and you're going through that, right? So I think what the psalmist is saying here, this just absolute challenge and abject, that's what addicts feel all the time before recovery, right? And he turns to grandfather toward the end of the psalm, seeking the help, reaching out, and so forth. The part that I find curious, though, and this is what I was mentioning before I read it, is the beginning of the psalm, right? I don't recall that we have seen yet where the psalmist is talking about grandfather sort of using grandfather's power over him, causing himself, the psalmist, distress and punishment and pain and so forth. Multiple times in quite a few of the Psalms we've read so far, have we heard the psalmist saying, do this to my enemies, right? They deserve it. They're bad. Smite them and all that, right? So we hear that. But to hear this, your arrows have sunk deep into me, speaking to grandfather. Your hand is heavy on me. Your fierce anger has made my body weak, right? And so forth. Your fierce anger. So what we have here is something very different and almost kind of bipolar, if you will, right? At the beginning of the psalm, we hear, at the end of the psalm, we hear, shine your favor on me, turn away from, turn to me and help me and support me. But at the beginning, we hear, you, God, are afflicting me, and it's your anger that is causing all of this, right? And y'all, there's a lot of people walking around with that image of God. And actually, I think a lot of the angry people, some of the people right now who are the most hateful, the most into this cruelty and this violence, that's the kind of God they believe in. And many, if not most of those people are in a church where it's teaching that kind of God, right? And it leads to their actions. And I will say this definitively, y'all, especially as we are reading liturgically through the Sermon on the Mount, the God that Jesus believed in, the God who was his Father, his Abba, is not that God. Period. Full stop. Full stop. One of the things, and I'll close with this, y'all, one of the things that I think is most important about the 12 steps, and we are coming up on about 90 years that since AA was founded right here in Ohio, Akron, Ohio, of all places. What we are, the genius of it is it doesn't define one's higher power, right? The first step is the second and third step is that first step is we came to believe that we recognized that we were powerless over our addictions, that our lives had become unmanageable. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We made a searching and we turned our lives over to the will of God as we understood God. Now, there is God language in the original 12 steps, but this higher power we define as individuals who are addicts seeking recovery. So I remember somebody telling me once that you find the God that works for you, the higher power that gives you what you need. There it is. And some might say, well, that's an idol, that's inventing God in your own image. I don't think so at all. Because what you're recognizing is there's a power greater than yourself. It's not you. You are humble enough to recognize that there is a power greater than myself, and it's not me. And then in the third step, made a decision to turn my life, our lives, and our wills over to that power greater than ourselves. All right, y'all covered a lot of ground here. I think, again, thank you for your patience in getting this late. I'm going to close with just a very short prayer. This is from the Centering Prayer book that I read each day. First thing, it's the first thing I read when I get to my Kindle. And here we go. Great Son of God in the heavens, your blaze is mighty, its power overwhelming. Your shining edge is all I see in the silence, and even that radiant sliver hurts the eyes of my heart. I'm turning to you in prayer now, as if to shake the lightning shock away. All right, y'all. Blessing and good. Be well, be bold, and hold fast, y'all.